I thought I might just begin by saying, and echoing what Trevor said earlier, which was that, I think your blog posts were absolutely fantastic. It was a real pleasure to read them. And, we'll give you some feedback on them today. I thought that there were, lots of really interesting, quite specific stories, and I think that's what we were looking for. Sometimes people talked a bit more generically, and that was very interesting too. But I think if you haven't talked about a specific event in a time and a place yet as part of what you've been writing, you might want to develop that further. If you're not aware of how to set up a Twitter account, it's very, very straightforward. Would somebody like to do it now? Would somebody like to set themselves up right now while we're here and come to the front? Come. Then it says have an account login up in the top right. So I think that, okay, sign up. Just to say, if you want to not reveal your name in making this Twitter identity, if you want to make a different Twitter identity to the one that you're using normally as part of your personal work, your personal life, by all means do something different. So I've done one that's called Studying London. I could have said Chris Lane Studying London, and I've got another one called Chris Lane London Met that I use for work. You can only make, or you need a different email address for each separate Twitter account. So I've got about 6, and so I've had to make different email addresses, like different Google accounts for each different email address. Okay. Okay. I guess. I mean, yeah. You can skip that if you want. If you go down to the bottom, I think you can skip it. Oh no, maybe you can't. Or you can uncheck them all. Just take them all off and then go continue. It's up to you if you want notifications. Say skip all. And now try sending a tweet, which is up there. Just say hello Studying London with the @ in front of it. Lovely. Okay, thank you very much. What's your name? Tanya. Thank you, Tanya. Now, if we if we go back here, now we don't see Tanya mentioned. She name-checked. Tanya name-checked Studying London, didn't she? But we don't see it here because these are only the tweets that have come from the @Studying London account. But we can look at, let's see now, would it be, we can just search Twitter. So if we do search Twitter for Studying London. So if I don't want to look at top, I want to look at latest. And there's Tanya. Leslie has just tweeted a picture of me, so I'm going to do this thing which I think it's really good for you to know how to do. Go to the magnifying glass on Windows and type in snip, and you get this thing called snipping tool, and then you can make a new snip, and then you can make a screenshot of any part of the screen, This is useful for lots of purposes. Now I've got a picture, so I can then save that picture to the desktop. So now I've got a picture of a tweet on the desktop. And then I'm going to go into the tweet and I'm going to copy a link to the tweet. Does that make sense? And then okay, there it is. I'm going to copy it with Control-C. And then I'm going to go to going to go to the London Met website, going to go and find my WebLearn account. I thought I was already logged in. There I am. Into here, and then go to the blogs. I know some of you missed out on this last week, so other people can show you how to do this in the workshop if you're not clear, but basically there's a set of blogs. You're supposed to blog in the group that is for your class, and I think you should all know which group you're in. So if I go into Maria's class, which was where I was working last week, those are the ones that I just got my phone to read you earlier, and I can say create blog entry, and I'm just going to write so there's me saying, let me make it a bit bigger so you can see it. There's me making a blog post thanking Leslie for her tweet. And then I'm going to, you need to know how to do this. I'm going to take the picture tool, which is that one. And when I tried to do this last week, it wouldn't work, but I think it will now. And then it's asking me to browse my computer and find a picture. And the picture I want is the screenshot of the tweet of that I just took. And then I'm going to say insert. Click OK. So now in my blog, I've got the picture of the tweet. And I might just add a little comment above it. So I put the picture in, I click the picture, and then up in the toolbar, if I click on link, the link tool, and you might remember that previously I copied the link to the tweet. So that's the tweet's address. So then I can insert that, click OK. So now, when I post my blog, and I click on the tweet, it takes me to Twitter. So I've just shown you how to set up Twitter, how to do a screenshot from anything on the screen, how to insert the image that you've screenshotted into a blog post, and then how to click on the image and make a link to it. Of course, we could, let me just get this right. If I go back to my blog, it's important to know as well, you know, you can go back in and edit your blog posts if you don't like them. So I could also, link to a tweet. I can select not just an image, but also any piece of text, and I can put a URL, a web address, into the text as well. So I'm putting the same link to the tweet into the text and on the image. So now when I repost my blog entry, the word tweet has become a hyperlink to the tweet, but I can also get to it if I click on the picture. So as you're developing your blogs, I think you're going to need to be using these kinds of capabilities. You need to know how to put an image of a tweet in, how to put any image in, how to make the picture link to something in the outside world, away from your blog, and also how to hyperlink from the words that you're mentioning. So if, for example, you're talking about the process of gentrification in Waltham Forest, and you found an article about that online, you could link to the article that you're discussing. That's the kind of thing that you need to be able to do. Are you just waving, or did you want to?
So can we choose? We don't need to have sort of. I know
You don't have to have. We said it is not absolutely 100% compulsory, but we would say if you participate, you will get a lot out of it. And I could remind you of the reasons why we think this is good. I think that there's a great deal of prevalence of people using Twitter as a way of developing their professional identities. So, don't use this account to tweet about your opinions about what? About, I don't know what do people tweet about? Trivial things sometimes, you could say. Don't use it for that. Sorry? Well, I think that, use it. Imagine that you're setting this up, and in 3 years' time when you apply for a job, an employer's going to look at it, they might search for you on the web, and they would see things that would impress them about the kind of person that you are. They would see that you've got 3 years' track record of talking about interesting issues related to the job that you're thinking of applying for, related to the professional area that you want to go into. So I think that's why we think it's important. You can use it to start to practice building a presence for yourselves in the professional area that you're concerned with. So you can manage to get through the module without tweeting, because you could do it all within the protected area of the WebLearn blog if you prefer. But we're quite interested in the idea that you try to do mixing between the two places. And you'll have seen that a lot in the public world, in the public sphere. You see all the time news stories that embed a tweet, don't you? I've posted some notes. So what I thought you could do is, thinking about the place that you told your story about last week and blogged about, you could see if you can find any connections between your place in London, or it could be a different place, somewhere that interests you, and the kinds of things that Trevor was talking about today. So I've just given you a whole load of maps of London. Let me show you this one. So here's a map of London. It's got a lot of stuff right in the middle, but this is a map that shows every single mention that Charles Dickens ever made in any of his novels of a place in London. So do you remember my story from last week? Do you remember it? My story about walking up. I walked up from Yardley Street, which is somewhere here. Here. I used to live there, and I walked with a bed all the way up Rosebery Avenue, up to the Angel, to this house here on somewhere here. I've slightly lost track of where it is, but anyway, it so happens, in a completely unplanned way, that I happened to be following the path that Oliver Twist took. Oh, is that right? No, what does it say? Mentioned in passing after Fagin accidentally throws beer at Bill Sikes. So have you heard of Oliver Twist? So it's a film, it's a book by, it happens that this route was one that it says Oliver and the Artful Dodger pass along the small road that leads to this theatre, that's Sadler's Well Theatre, on their way to Fagin's lair. Now, what's Oliver Twist a story about? A boy who's born in a workhouse that Trevor was talking about earlier. And actually what happens, the whole story is about how this boy is tempted to lead a life of crime. But I just think it's extraordinary that the stories that people told 100 years ago are taking place, and the journeys that are being taken are the same journeys that I've taken in my life that I'm telling stories about. So I thought you could maybe have a look at that. It may be difficult because you might find that, where you live or where you want to talk about doesn't have, obviously Dickens was talking mainly about things that were happening in central London. In fact, this makes a little bit the point that Trevor was making about the fact that London's expanded a lot because lots of his stories are based in the centre. But, there's an opportunity there for you to do some research. But I've widened it beyond just Dickens. So I've got some other literature, pubs that have associations with literature, a world map of books and where they're located. But I've also included some, here we are, Islington locations for films. So I just think, you're telling stories about the city. Have a look at some stories that other people have told. you could also think about whether you'd like to look at some journalism. Did you hear what Donald Trump said yesterday, by the way? So last night he said that journalists and writers are very, very dangerous people. That's all of you. So go and make some dangerous things happen through your writing. Destabilize things, shake the world up, and look at the fact that journalists are writing about things like this is gentrification in Walthamstow. So I think all of you could find something that links to the themes that Trevor was talking about.